want to watch.
How's it going, guys? Welcome back to Fatberg. Today we have another list. Fatberg Fives, that whole series there is something I want to be kind of like a main thing we do here on the channel, so expect more of these in the future. But today we are doing 5 video games that are actually evil. So over the years, a lot of games have drummed up controversy for, their content. You have your Grand Theft Autos, your Postals, things like that. But these are 5 video games that actually did something wrong or were intentionally meant to be evil and cause harm. So let's start off with number 5 here. So the first one on the list is 6 Days in Fallujah. I'm putting this at the start of the list as I'm rating these mostly based on their intent, right? Like if the developers actually intended for it to cause harm, or if it just kind of, as a side effect of their negligence, was malicious, I guess you would say. And in this case, I don't think they intended for the game to be, harmful exactly, but I do believe their actions here were unfair. So let's begin. So a bit of background. The conflict in Fallujah was a battle that took place over a month in 2004 during the Iraq War. It was one of the bloodiest and most controversial conflicts that happened during that time. Thousands died, including hundreds of civilians, and it was particularly a controversial fight due to the hardened position of the insurgents, essentially meaning the US Marines were forced into suicide missions daily, but also due to the civilian presence in the area. Essentially, the Marines had to just kind of bust into houses in the area, and there was either, insurgents there or just some dude and his family, and they had to kind of hope they got the right guy in the process. So anyway, how soon is too soon to make a video game based on that? Not 5 years, apparently. Konami announced 6 Days in Fallujah by Atomic Games in 2009. It was supposed to be a very technically advanced milsim game, but due to its close release to the real-world conflict, it drew a great deal of backlash. Ultimately, it was canceled, but it was revived in recent years and released into early access on Steam. You can actually go buy it now, and apparently it's pretty good, I guess. This game gets the lowest spot on the list because, again, I don't think the intent was to be malicious exactly, but they were definitely negligent in their handling of the subject matter, and even today, I would say it's a touchy subject to make a video game out of. Do we really need to be fucking with, like real recent real-world events like that? Like, they're talking about the next Call of Duty is going to be set during, like the Gulf War or some shit. It's like, come on. If I could watch it on the news in my lifetime, I don't think we need to be making games out of it. And number 4 is Custer's Revenge. I hope this isn't too much of a cop-out because it's just the classic offensive video game. Quite literally, it came out in the 80s, but the point stands. This game was fucked up. Custer's Revenge was a game released for the Atari 2600 in 1982. The player was given the role of General Custer, a real-life figure in American history who fought against the Native Americans. The actual Americans who were here, and we just kind of killed all of them. In this game, Custer has set out to free and have sex with captured Native American women. The whole thing is very rapey. A huge, just massive mishandling of a horrible time period, consisting of genocide of the natives here, and we're using them as a sex object for one of the people responsible for doing that. There's no way no one in the studio didn't stop at some point in time and think, this is kind of fucked up, They just didn't care. Ultimately, the people responsible for pushing this through did not give a shit, and they created a very... Again, I feel as though it is malicious. The intent here... They shouldn't be making games about genocide and rape. And, I wasn't the only one that feels that way. The game was controversial at the time, not for the rape of Native women, no, just because of the sexual nature as a whole. do what you want with the natives, I suppose. And continuing with that subject, and also, again, kind of a cop-out, but it stands to reason this is one of the worst things on the list, one of the worst games ever made. In terms of being horrible, I've never played it. Maybe it's fun as fuck. I don't know. We're going to be talking about Rapeplay, and you heard that correctly. Rapeplay is a erotic video game published by Illusion in 2006, which, holy shit, I didn't know it was that old. The player takes control of a sexual predator who, due to his family's ties to the government, is kind of free to do as he pleases and avoid jail time. The player is tasked with sexually assaulting a mother and her 2 children, one being 12 years old according to the game's written backstory. Great. The game ends with the women being captured and turned into sex slaves, with a few alternate endings where they either kill the captor or are impregnated by him, and eventually one gets hit by a fucking train, I guess. This is the first game on this list I feel is legitimately evil. Again, the intent here is to give sexual predators fucking jack-off material, and making a game out of any of that subject matter is just fucked up. It's horrible, and this game is... You can't argue that this shit was fucking evil, man. This is bad. This is a really bad fucking game. It's not a cop-out when it's true. We're going to be talking about ethnic cleansing again. You're hearing that correctly. Ethnic Cleansing is a first-person shooter released in 2002. It was produced by a neo-Nazi organization by the name of the National Alliance. Is that their fucking name? Whatever. It was released under their record label, Resistance Records, and it was dropped on... That's probably not going to sound like drums through the microphone. That's going to sound like fucking insane nonsense. I'm sorry. This game was dropped on Martin Luther King Day. Great. So they definitely trying to make a bit of a point there, I suppose. The player takes the role of a neo-Nazi who is either participating or trying to start a race war. It's not particularly clear, but what the player is tasked with is killing African Americans, Latinos, and Jewish people. All depicted stereotypically, with the black people making monkey noises upon their death. Yeah, I mean, if that wasn't bad enough, where it goes to the next level, what makes the game truly, truly evil, in my opinion, is a representative of the National Alliance straight up said the game was made to indoctrinate children. This was his quoted reason for the creation of this. He wanted them to dislike other races and potentially be open to racially motivated violence. That was the whole point of the game's creation. It wasn't a racist joke or made for fun. It was made to fuck with kids' outlook on society. Again, truly evil intent. And finally, we're going to be talking about Sad Satan. So, if you haven't heard of it, Sad Satan is an indie game who the creator is unknown but simply listed as ZK. The story as it goes is this game was sent to a YouTuber over at Obscure Horror Corner. It was sent in the form of a Tor link or a dark web link. Obscure Horror Corner downloaded this game from the dark web link and found it to be a strange sort of walking simulator. But as the player progressed, they were presented with images and audio recordings of infamous serial killers and child predators, such as Charles Manson and Jimmy Savile. Over the time, the images would become more alarming, showing gore and eventually CSAM. The story was picked up and people investigated. Eventually a censored version of the game would surface, but some claim to have gotten copies of the game with the illegal images still intact. As people dug deeper, what seems to be the case is Obscure Horror Corner themselves likely made the game to, bolster their channel and may have procured the images in question and planted them in the game. All in an attempt to further its infamy and horror, I guess. Ultimately, I put this one at the top of the list, not only because it's disgusting nature, but also it's the only one on the list that may have at some point been actually illegal to own and play. The idea someone would use actual images of child abuse as a sort of entertainment is, of course, evil. I think that goes without saying. It's also very fucking stupid. I never really understood this. There was like that rumor about like MD Pope and all these other things, and I don't know what it is with people that think like putting, you know, abuse images of children in something somehow makes it way more like infamous and mysterious. Like that shit exists. It doesn't make something like more secret and like dark knowledge to find it. It just makes the person who created it bigger of a fucking asshole. You were better off just making a weird creepypasta game. You know? Like, especially nowadays, like, Sonic.exe is bigger than he ever was, and you did this dumb shit. And ultimately, Obscure Horror Corner fell into obscurity, pun intended. He's not around anymore, and he may be in prison for creating this. So, that was top 5 video games that are actually evil. Stay tuned for more top 5 lists, and thanks for watching.